The Galactic Council's chambers had never witnessed such absolute silence. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire stood at the central podium, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the ethereal light of 1,000 distant stars visible through the dome above. Around him, representatives from 47 civilizations waited with barely contained anticipation. "The humans," Zethkar announced, his voice carrying across the vast amphitheater, "have chosen silence." A ripple of disbelief coursed through the assembly. The Kelhari delegates' tentacles writhed in agitation, while the Nexus Collective's biomechanical forms hummed with increased processing power. Even the ancient ethereals, beings of pure energy who rarely showed emotion, flickered with what could only be described as surprise. It had been 37 standard cycles since Earth received the Council's ultimatum: submit to galactic law, surrender their primitive weapons, and accept integration under Council oversight, or face the consequences. Every species in recorded history had complied within 10 cycles. The humans had let the deadline pass without so much as an acknowledgement. "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Ythmera, her melodious voice barely concealing her contempt, "these primitives simply lack the technology to respond across such distances." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. "Our intelligence suggests otherwise. They possess faster-than-light communication. They received our message." The Council had first taken notice of humanity 3 cycles ago when their crude signals began bleeding into civilized space. A young species, barely past nuclear fission, still confined to a single star system. They should have been grateful for the Council's offer of guidance, as every other species had been for the past millennium. "What do we know of their military capabilities?" asked General Thoxran, the war leader of the Krillian hegemony. "Primitive kinetic weapons, chemical propulsion, no energy shields or plasma technology. They fight among themselves constantly, a sure sign of an undeveloped civilization." Zethkar's dismissive tone drew approving clicks and hums from the assembly. The decision was unanimous. The 15th Fleet would make the journey to the Sol system and demonstrate why the Council's word was absolute law. It was expected to be a simple pacification mission, overwhelming force applied precisely to break their will to resist. Admiral Corvustel of the hegemony would lead the fleet personally. As his massive dreadnought emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the human system, he felt the familiar satisfaction of another successful intimidation campaign about to unfold. His fleet of 200 vessels spread out in perfect formation behind him, more than enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. "Begin scanning for their defensive installations," he ordered. "Open a channel once we're in range." The scan. Results left his tactical officer speechless. "Admiral, there's nothing." "Nothing? No orbital platforms, no defensive grids. Their homeworld appears completely undefended. There are some small vessels moving between their planetary bodies, but nothing that registers as military vessels." Corvustel frowned. Either these humans were incredibly foolish or— The thought was interrupted by his communications officer. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the third planet." "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a human female in what appeared to be formal attire. Her species was as unremarkable as the report suggested. Bilateral, symmetry, forward-facing eyes, primitive vocal communication. Yet something in those eyes made Corvustel uneasy. "I am Secretary General Chen of the United Earth Government," the human said, her voice steady and clear. "You have entered our star system without permission." Corvustel activated his translator and leaned forward. "I am Admiral Corvustel of the Galactic Council Fleet. Your world has been found in violation of Council Law 347, failure to submit to galactic authority. You will surrender immediately." The human's expression didn't change. "We received your ultimatum, we decline." "You decline?" The Admiral's voice rose in incredulous anger. "Do you comprehend what stands before you? This fleet could reduce your world to radioactive ash." Secretary General Chen nodded slowly. "Yes, we understand. You have advanced weapons faster than light, Travel energy shields, we have none of these things. She paused, and for a moment Corvustel thought he detected something like pity in her eyes. But you've made one critical error in your assessment. And what is that? You assume we're defenseless because we lack your technology. You've confused primitive with harmless. Before Corvustel could respond, his sensor operator's voice cut across the bridge, tight with panic. Admiral, energy signatures appearing throughout the system, massive ones. The tactical display exploded into activity. What had appeared to be empty space moments before now revealed hundreds of contacts moving at incredible speeds. But these weren't ships, they were too small, too fast. What are those? Corvustel demanded. His science officer's face had gone pale. Admiral, they appear to be rocks. Rocks? Asteroids, Admiral, accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, and they're all aimed at us. Secretary General Chen's voice continued from the communication channel, calm and measured. We may not have your energy weapons or your shields, Admiral, but we understand physics quite well. Mass times velocity equals force. When you accelerate several million tons of iron and nickel to 20% of light speed. The first impact struck the outer ships of the fleet. The kinetic energy release was beyond anything in Corvustel's experience. Ships that had withstood plasma bombardments and antimatter torpedoes simply ceased to exist, vaporized in brilliant flashes of light. Impossible, Corvustel roared. How did you accelerate them without us detecting the energy signatures? Time, Admiral. We've been moving these asteroids for 2 years using small continuous burns from chemical rockets. By the time you arrived, they were already in motion. Simple Newtonian mechanics. More impacts. The Council fleet, designed for fighting energy-based weapons and conventional spacecraft, had no defense against projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Their shields, calibrated for plasma and particle beams, might as well have been paper. You're destroying your own system, Corvustel accused as another wave of kinetic projectiles claimed a dozen more ships. No, Chen replied quietly. We're defending it. Every rock we've launched will either hit one of your ships or continue harmlessly into deep space. We've calculated the trajectories very carefully. The Admiral watched in horror as half his fleet disappeared in the span of minutes. These primitives had weaponized their entire asteroid belt, turning their star system into a vast kinetic bombardment platform. Retreat, he finally ordered. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. As the surviving Council ships fled the Sol system, Secretary General Chen's final words followed them. Tell your Council that Earth's answer remains the same. We decline their offer. And Admiral? Her voice hardened. Don't come back. 3. Few ships that made it back to Council space brought with them a new understanding. Humanity had answered the Council's ultimatum, not with submission or even defiance, but with a demonstration that the difference between primitive and helpless was something the galaxy had forgotten in its millennia of technological supremacy. The Council ordered no further expeditions to Sol. Some lessons, they decided, were too expensive to ignore. In the depths of space, humanity continued their work, patient and methodical, turning their star system into an impregnable fortress, one calculated trajectory at a time. They had spoken with silence and fire, and the galaxy had listened.